Today's suggestion comes from the LWD, who says, "What if there was a story made about a person who has to drink a mysterious blue liquid and gets sustenance from this blue liquid? Everyone around him calls this blue liquid horrible and putrid, but he has to have a vial of blue liquid every few hours. He goes to great lengths to conceal this blue liquid until eventually he's forced to tell someone close to him about his addiction to the blue liquid. And at the very end, we can say that this blue liquid was water." What a great suggestion. Let's find out the story. Jim clasped the vial of liquid in his right palm and caressed his trembling fingers over its light blue hue. Between the digits of his fingers, and within the reflection of the vial, Jim's frantic gaze appeared warped and diffuse. Darting his eyes back and forth, he frantically searched for any bystander unfortunate enough to cast their sight on his sorry soul. To his left, the dimly lit alleyway that Jim had entered from, and to his right, a dead end on the rear of an old abandoned brothel. Jim hurriedly popped the cork off the vial, and his anticipation trembled down his spine, crawled over his crooked kneecaps, and reverberated through his ankles and into the mucid alleyway floor. Jim cocked his head back, and with one instantaneous motion, he slugged the liquid down his gullet. A titillating sense of euphoria washed over his senses, and, for a moment, he drank in his self-satisfaction. Jim opened his bloodshot eyes and took in a prolonged breath. The sudden smell of stench seeped into his sinuses, and Jim, who was previously blind to the rankness of the alley, found himself coughing back to his senses. How many times could he keep doing this? How long would he be reliant on this wonder drug? The sense of guilt, shame, flushed his visage, which complemented itself well to the stench of the alley. Jim knew the things that they said behind his back, but it's not like Jim could really care. He had to have his liquid. Had to have the cool sensation consume every corner and crevice, and have it crawl its way down into his very core. He came to his senses and lumbered out of the alley and back to his car. Jim flipped down the sun visor and stared at his ghastly image. Two sunken-in gray marbles fastened themselves into his dry, pale husk. Locks of matte brown tendrils poured themselves out of his crown and reached themselves halfway down his face. Jim started the car and made his way back to his job. Yet the allure of the liquid was far greater than the importance of his job. Jim shuffled into the office and exchanged glances with the bodies that filled its space. He hunkered himself down into his cubicle and steadily worked. With the gnawing sensation ever present, it frayed the edges of his soul like nails on a chalkboard. This was normal for Jim, a life of servitude to the serum he found so succulent. For a time, Jim was able to balance the demands of life with that of the liquid. Yet, as time marched on, the labors of his tribulations only proliferated. Each day compoundedly harder than the last, until Jim alone was not strong enough to bear the burdens of desire. Jim found himself at the veil of the unknown, the entryway to the greater good, that which allowed his affliction room to not only intervene with him, but with the people around him. Jim stood motionless at the doorway of his mother's abode, paralyzed by the fear of coming clean. He mustered the manpower and courage to confide to a confidant. Jim shakily gave 3 knocks unto the dark oak door. After a short eternity, a slender widow emerged from her nest. Their eyes locked, and the soft sounds of his mother's voice deafened his ears. Jimmy? Hey, Mom. I know it's been a while. Do you think I'm still welcome in?" The recluse spied up and down at the ghostly sight brought to her. With a deep sigh, she remarked, "Of course, Jimmy." Jim was unsure if he should embrace his mother or treat her like the stranger he has been. Upon entering his childhood home, he was forced to act, and what came out was an awkward, short-lived side huddle. He shuffled his way to the old worn sofa, and it let out a small groan as it sagged into itself. His mother stared worriedly at Jim, and Jim chose to avoid eye contact and instead opted to stare at the old fireplace that once lit many cozy family gatherings. "Jimmy, I haven't seen you in years, and today of all days, you show up at my door looking like hell?" His expression stared past the fireplace and into the ether. Jim managed to sputter out a few words. "Mom, His mother cut him off. "That damn liquid," she exclaimed. "I should have known your goddamn She cut herself off and took a deep breath. "It was only a matter of time until you would have come crawling back to me." She pressed her lips and closed her eyes indignantly. Jim attempted to get in a few more words. "Mom, His frail attempts were cut short, as his mother said, "Jim, my love, do you know how long I had to deal with your father and his second love?" Jim stared blankly at the ether. 15 years. 15 goddamn years, and I chose to love him. And do you know what that got me? Do you know what I've been left with? Jim broke his attention from the nothingness and searched the room around him. What was once home was now a shell of its former self, with shadows in place of the hearth and ghosts for decoration. The same furniture and vinyl wallpaper adorned themselves, but the aging brought about from time had left them withered and frail. The absence of joys past was now embedded itself into each and every crevice and corner of this broken nest. "Jim, you know that when I close my eyes and think of him, all that I can even think about is that putrid, horrible, good-for-nothing drug." She brought her hand up to her face and collapsed into her palm. Wiping the pain from her brow, she took another breath in. "Jim..." She walked closer to him and kneeled eye level to him. The words she spoke echoed into his very being. "I love you, but..." The "but" reverberated back and forth in between his brain's hemispheres and out the other ear. "I can tell you love that liquid just as much as your father did." Jim clamored for the words to say, "But I need it." "You don't need it, Jim. You need real things, like a job or a family. How long has it been? You've been gone for almost as long as he has, and for what? For you to be swept up by that damn blue crap? And where has it left me? I bet you have no friends and no one to turn to but me." She stared out the window, and her words began to trail off. That's how it was for him. Jim had no response. "Jim, I just don't want to lose you like I did Frank." Jim stared down into the floorboards. She placed her hands on his shoulders. Jim, startled from his first human attempt of compassion that he has felt in years, blinked several times as it computed in his system. He steadied his gaze onto his mother's eyes as she spoke. "Just like it took him from me, are you gonna let it take you? I need it. You don't. I do. That damn water. You know it's good for nothing. She made her way to the old closet and pulled out a worn leather suitcase. This was your father's. She handed Jim a small syringe. An unknown liquid glimmered, dense with nutrients, perfect for an ideal citizen. Jim held it between the digits of his fingers, and within the reflection of the vial, Jim's bested gaze appeared clear and sharp. Jim clasped it in his sweating palms. He knew what he had to do.